when I was in the movement, I used to say the same thing. I used to say, Black people cannot continue to say that we're the first, that we're the first on the earth, that we're the first. Black people cannot continue to say that without being able to do an honest, deep historical analysis of the role that we played that allowed us to be in this point, in this moment. All of the criticisms that we have, all of the grief and the beef, legitimate criticisms that we have of others, right? Because white people ain't our only problem. Hey, we got 2,000 years of Arab slavery on the continent prior to white slavery, European slavery, right? And so we have to be honest enough with ourselves to do an assessment of history and the role that we played and how we got here, how we arrived at this moment in history, right? To accept this hyper romanticized idea that everything was blissful and utopian in Africa, to accept, to believe that everything was awesome and utopian in Asia, to believe that everything was pristine and utopian in the Americas, and the only thing wrong that ever happened to us was us meeting Europeans, is kindergartenish at best. We do our people a real disservice to have that kind of analysis about how we arrived at this moment, how we got here. You understand? And then it's easy to get sidetracked. Not sidetracked. It's easy because it's difficult. It's easy to get hyper focused on the present. So hyper focused that you shirk the responsibility of doing the deep historical analysis that would allow you to change time. Listen to what I'm telling you. It's easy to get hyper focused on this thing that we call colonialism or oppression, the many ways that it shows itself, without doing a historical analysis, a genuine, deep, thorough historical analysis that changes time. And so here we are again, me having this conversation, trying to understand best, because that's all I want to do. I want to understand how we arrived at this moment so that we can change it, so that we can be radically impactful. I'm looking for something and how we change it. Give me a second, because this is going to distract me if I don't find it. All right. Now, let me tell you why this is all important. I saw this video a few weeks ago of this girl who was talking about some kind of reading she got, some kind of spiritual reading she got, or maybe it's a psychological process, something like that. And then I heard it reiterated a couple of weeks ago by another girlfriend. And it reminded me of the kind of work I've been doing on myself, like in my journaling, going back. Like I always tell y'all, it's important for us in this moment to go back into the foundational years of our life, which are 0 to 18. Those are the years of our lives that kind of set the patterns, whether those are good patterns or bad patterns, set the patterns for how we are in the rest of our lives. And they are monumental, these moments, but we spend so much time focusing on, quote, the traumas of our childhood that we miss monumental things that can help us in this moment. And so the key for me was using my journaling, going back through my memory banks, jotting down huge moments and memories and rewriting them. And I heard this girl talk about it and I was like, oh my God, that's what I've been doing intuitively. She talked about, maybe it was like, I can't remember the girl's name. It was something I saw in passing, but it stood out. She was saying how she had this memory when she was a child and she was in her room by herself, right? It was at night. And she had this vision. It didn't feel like a dream. She said it felt like a vision that this woman came into her room, right? And the woman said something. I forget how it went. I'm gonna see if I can find it. Probably not. But she was saying that two versions of her adult self had come to her room that night, but she thought they were some women that she didn't know. These women came to her in a waking vision, right? Because she was scared about something in her life. And so this woman who looked like she was in her 20s came to her in her room and took her hand or something. And then the older woman came and took her hand and walked her out of this place where she was scared, right? And it wasn't until she was an adult doing these like, therapies or something that were like helping her to retrieve moments in her childhood that she realized that the two women that came to visit her that night in this waking vision was herself, right? And let me tell you, I have done this where I have gone back into my past with the information that I have now. And I started doing this as soon as I became a devotee of V5. Of course, I didn't know this was what I was doing, but I was going back to these monumental periods in my life that at the time I didn't have a language for. I didn't have the mores, the myths, the stories of the traditions of my ancestors. I didn't have that as a language. I didn't have African internationalism. I didn't have, a direct lineage to Africa. So that was not a language that I had access to in my foundational years. So now that I had this language, right? I didn't have the language of 10 years of medical school, of the language of traditional practices of medicine from all over the planet, from North and South and Central America, from India and from Europe and from Africa and from Asia. I didn't have that as context. I didn't have this as a language that would help to explain these things that had happened in my life. So they didn't have any impact at that moment, at that time in history, right? But now that I have this widely varied language, I can go back to my childhood and make sense, weave together these things that seemed like unrelated, crazy dreams or incidences that had nothing to do with what was to become my life. Okay? That now that I have arrived at this place where I have this widely varied language through experiences, through communication with others, through relationships, I can go back, I'm telling you crystal clear, go back to moments in my childhood and make something that didn't make sense become perfectly clear and know that that child in that moment is having an impact on me right now. Me going back and explaining self to this child with this new language has had an immediate impact on me. And I can give you examples. It ain't no shit I'm talking in conjecture. I am telling you, I can give you examples. Let me read some of y'all comments. Hold on. All the time, the victimization of self is crazy, but we yearn to return to those moments. We say that to claim a sense of superiority, but it's futile. I'm going to post this comment. I'm going to tell you, I ain't going to go too deep into the incidences. Maybe that somebody can timestamp this, and that can be a whole live that I do. The moments in my past that these languages gave life to and understanding to in my childhood, and going back and telling that child what she was experiencing and how it was going to be impactful, and it being immediately impactful. The reason that I am bringing this up is because we have been told this over and over and over again now. Okay, like Reverend Brianna Land just says here, regression work, yes. Inner child work, yes. Based in indigenous practices and used in therapy. KKK, trauma-informed coaching, yes. This is very effective work for healing, yes. And we do that. All of us are doing that now. Facebook user. I don't know who Facebook user is. So if you tune in from Facebook, you have to announce yourself, because all it says is Facebook user. It won't show me who you are. Twitch and YouTube will, but Facebook user, I don't know. It says mushrooms are very rich in. Yeah. Okay. So this is a spammer. Anyway, so the reason I'm saying this is because we all hip to the game now. We didn't have this information in mass, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, right? This how we can, get past life regressions or regression work for our own personal childhood. How do we reparent our inner child and all of this stuff, right? And so, there's a lot of data. There's a lot of data that tells us why this is effective, how it is impactful, to go back, to not ignore your childhood, to not see it as something that you need to chronically escape from, right? Or chronically heal trauma from, right? So if that's the case, that we know, this is the point I was attempting to make with this. If we know that this thing works, too many people have talked about their experiences with this kind of work, right? To go back and know that when you go back and, quote, reparent your inner child, when you go back and resolve or heal the trauma wounds from your childhood, when we go back and, nurture our inner baby, right? When we go back and we do all of this work, right? How the way that it heals is that it is immediately impactful in our present. Why? Because history is always present. Just like the future is always now, history is always now. It's always present in the moment, right this minute. Impactful in this minute, always and forever. Always impactful, right? And so if that is the case, then it means we have to do the same work collectively to go back, not as if we're witnessing something that's long gone, to go back and to know, just like I told y'all last week. Did I write it down? I don't know if I did. But I told y'all last week that when you're talking about the work that I am convinced it is going to take to be to have a radical and rapid impact on the now, is centering Black women. But to not see that, to not have a knee-jerk response, and to not see that as something that's hierarchical or top down, but to see that is more like the spiral. That this is where we are now. This is our origin. And if we can resolve, it's just like okay, this is homeopathy too. This homeopathy right here. Homeopathy says that yes, while you are here right now, this is where we is right now. This is where we began. Right, Jim? Homeopathy says that yes, in the present, this is where we are now. This is the present. This is where we began, right? This is the return to center. But what homeopathy teaches us is that, and it's a complicated system of medicine, but to attempt to oversimplify, right? Every disease ever on earth, it's the cause of the disease is called a miasm. I don't know how many of you remember this long conversation that I've had several times about the miasm, right? And the miasma, the miasm and the miasma. But all disease is the consequence of spiritual pollution. That's what homeopathy teaches. A spiritual pollution that continues for forever. And if left unresolved, becomes the origin or the seed, right? So in homeopathy, if you present right now, with whatever you present with. So this is our collective condition. This is our collective disharmony we talking about. Is the now, is all the isms, right, that we are attempting to resolve. There's millions of them. You understand? Sexism, racism, colonialism, capitalism, on all the isms and all the ways that the isms affect everybody on earth. Right? This is where we at right now. Homeopathy teaches that traumas left unresolved, right, pile up on each other like the layers of onions, because that trauma doesn't go anywhere if it's left unresolved, untreated. Another trauma happens and it piles on a layer. Another trauma happens and it becomes a layer. Another trauma happens and it becomes a layer, until finally, when we have a physical expression of disease or disharmony, that's the final stage of years of the layering on or the piling on of trauma, right? Whether that's physical trauma, emotional trauma, spiritual trauma, right? And so homeopathy teaches that you have to do two things at once. You have to treat the symptoms to give relief. But at the same time, you are still healing the core, the origin, while peeling back the layers of the onion, peeling back the layers of the onion, peeling back the layers of the onion. You're doing two things at once. Now, my reason for using this as an analogy, and why because I say this is how we have to live. This is how we have to move, right? Centering the beginning, knowing that everything we do to heal the beginning, to heal the origin, will have an immediate impact on the now. Everything that we do to uplift, raise, heal the center, heal the origin, heal the beginning, will have an immediate impact on the now, right? It will. It will reverberate through thousands of years of trauma, simultaneously relieving the symptoms of the now, while at the same time rooting out the core of what ails us all. And I'm going to tell you, I don't want to be overly simplistic, but my mother is always telling me, baby, keep it simple. Make it plain and keep it simple. And the thing that ails us all, from the most malignant to the most benign, is our separation, our perception of separation from our Creator. That's what ails us all. And she is calling us all back. Everybody ain't going to heed the call, but she is calling us all back. There ain't no chosen. I hear a lot of people talking about the chosen, the few. Y'all are mistaken. Y'all are mistaken, at least in my estimation. Y'all are mistaken. Every woman whose body was parted in two to allow a being to come through her has been chosen, has been crowned with their mother's blood, baptized in their mother's water. This is the contract. This is the covenant. The only covenant is baptism in your mother's body and blood rituals on your crown, boo, on your crown chakra. Your crown consecrated in your mother's blood. That's it. We're all chosen. We all exist purposefully. And what that means is we all have the opportunity to heed the call. We all have don't mean everybody will, but what we have to do is contend. We have to contend, and we cannot contend with this old antiquated idea that it's going to be some talented 10th, or it's going to be 1% of us, or it's going to be, the chosen few who save the planet. It's not. We have to make the call far and wide. We have to weave the web and cast that motherfucker far and wide to call the mother's children back to her body, to end global isolation. 8 billion people on the planet, and we all feel like we by ourselves. We all feel like we alone. You understand? So that's what I'm telling you. And so I'm going to continue to reiterate it. Now, let's see. Kim says it's like putting the pieces of a broken mirror back together, and those fragmented lines disappear as you pick the piece. Let's see, as you pick the pieces of you. Okay. Yes. I've been saying this for about 4 months now. Separation, what we have brought into. Yes. So, okay. So let me go back to this thing that has got y'all all distraught. Because I had people genuinely and rightfully distraught about the download that I put on y'all a week ago. It hasn't changed. That's why I started by saying multiple things can be true at the same time, just like in the spiral, right? Multiple things are happening in the spiral. You understand? And so what I said still stands. One of the things that we as women have to do is to accept that if we believe that we are microcosms of our mother, that we are the microcosms to her creative power. We are, right? That we are the conduits through which the mother's will to exist in different ways. Because what's the overall theme for us, for the temple of evolutionary emergence? The overall theme is what Barbara Moore said in The Great Cosmic Mother when she was talking about this book here, The Search for Oneness. She said, Mommy and I are one. These scientists said, I wonder what would happen if we ended the isolation that people experience, this severing in their minds from their mother. Mommy and I are one. And if that's the case, if Mommy and I are one, and we have been told for 6,000 years that our mother is just some mechanical, faceless, nameless vessel responsible for keeping the ranks of the military well fed, and to keep the industrial assembly lines well stocked. That's all she's here for, is to crank out babies as cannon fodder and raw material for war, and raw cheap material for industrial assembly lines. If that's all we are good for, and our mothers have been turned into mechanized biological material for the sole purpose of cranking out babies under somebody else's control, you feel me? There was a point I was gonna make. Then there's no wonder that we experience so many antagonisms, so much despair, so much split personalities where our mothers are concerned, because we are born into a world that has been made miserable. And I know, like myself, at some juncture in our lives, we have blamed our mamas. We have said something, even if it's within ourselves, why she even had me? Why was I even born? This shit is terrible. The world is terrible. You know what I'm saying? Why they treat Black people like this everywhere on earth? They treat Black, why my mama even had me? There's blame in that, right? There's despair in that. And we've all experienced it. That's a part of the severing, right? And so, but the download, the transmission from last week was about how And it's not about blame. There were some women who emailed me really distraught. So what? You blaming women? Like, damn, man. I get so tired of people blaming Black women for everything. Blaming Black women for everything. Baby, that's not what the mother put on me. I get that's how it sounded. But that's not what the mother put on me last week. Greetings, Faith. I see you on here, boo. I'm you know me, my intros be kind of long, but I'm gonna pull y'all up in just a minute. Okay. So anyway, I think what I may have to do. Anyway, that's not what I was saying. And that's not what the mother was saying. That's not what I felt when I said it, when I got it. What I felt was the same thing that I was saying about when I was in the movement, and how we as African people can't have it both ways. We can't talk about how we're the first one here, how, we gave technology and science to the world, and we did all these wonderful things, and then not do an honest and thorough, complete historical analysis of the role that we played, and how we arrived at this moment. I just said to y'all last week, we all play a role in the maintenance of this bitch that we hate. We hate white supremacy. We hate white male domination of the planet. We hate patriarchy. But we daily, every last one of us, play a role in its preservation and its maintenance. That's how this bitch is designed, is for us to play a role in its preservation and its maintenance. That's the way the world is designed. We have to restructure. We have to recreate the now. That's the mission. The web that they have cast that have us all locked into it, guaranteeing that we participate, we have to recreate that. We are the fates. We have to reweave the whole world, so that those things that are a necessity in our lives, we do not feel burdened and guilty about having to own them, because we know somebody else's suffering is intrinsically tied to our use of these products. That's what we have to do. We have to completely reshape and restructure the web. We have to recreate the world in the present. And so that's what got me on it, is we as women have to go back and say, okay, at what gave rise to this thing that we are witnessing? Because the violence that we see, it's like maniacal. It's maniacal. It's insane, the quality and gravity of the violence that we see, especially against women, especially against children. The violence, the way it plays out, mass murder, serial killers, sadistic, insane, like wildly, we say stuff like, damn, how does this stuff even come up in a person's imagination? Like, where does this emanate from? Like, how does a mind come up with these kind of sick, twisted ideas, right? That's what I'm talking about. It's like maniacal insanity. And so I had to think about this like a doctor. I had to think about this like a person who understands Chinese medicine, who understands 5 elements theory, right? And if I'm looking at it like that, and I know what happens pathologically, pathogenically, how one thing becomes another, the pathogenesis of how disease begins to express itself. And I know that all psychological disease, diagnosable psychological conditions, psychopathy, sociopathy, bipolar disorder, manic depression, schizophrenia, all psychological disease, at least where 5 elements theory is concerned, where Chinese medicine is concerned, emanates from the heart. It comes from the heart. How you treat these conditions is through treating the heart as the organ and the heart channel and the pericardium channel, right? But you treat the heart to stabilize conditions of the consciousness, of the mind, what we call the mind, right? This is science I am giving you. Okay. This is science, that the heart is responsible in its expression of any kind of disharmony where the organs may be impacting the heart, causing the disharmony. But the heart governs the mind, the subconscious and the conscious mind. The heart does. Okay. And you have the other organs that impact it, right? Those organs having their own emotional expressions, rage and resentment, frustration, anger, that's the liver, right? Fear and shock, that's the kidney. Grief, that's the lung. Worry, pensiveness, anxiety, that's the spleen. These are the emotions and how they impact the organs, and all of those organs impact the heart because the heart is the emperor. The heart is the emperor. The heart directs everybody. The heart takes external information and allows the other organs to process it. Am I in danger? Am I in fear for my life? Do I need to survive in this moment? Is love present in my life? Is there something? Even so, all of the emotions, they say, are filtered by the heart and impact the other organs. So the heart is where joy and sadness are housed, right? But all of the emotions are filtered through the heart to be experienced by the other organs, right? Why am I telling y'all this? Because I just told y'all a week ago how the mother kicked my ass at 5 o'clock in the morning talking about you women have not allowed males to experience love the way you are afforded the opportunity to experience it. You have kept secret from your sons what love feels like in your body when you become mother. They only experience half of that. They experience it as the recipient of this unbelievable love, this love that covers and protects and watches over, nourishes, works for, keeps your butt clean, make sure your baby cry in the middle of the night. You up. No questions asked. You ain't mad. You ain't angry. You ain't frustrated. You up, baby crying. They only experience that aspect of it. The all present, the ever present you as the loving, nurturing God to their baby, to their infancy, where I need mama to be 2 seconds away because she's the center of my universe, my mama, this person who I lived in her body for 9 months, hearing her heartbeat on top of my head, feeling all her emotions on my body, in my body, surrounded on all sides by everything she was going through. And you have kept this a secret from your sons. So while your sons can experience this massive amount of love as an infant to about 2 or 3 before we start telling them no and yelling at them and putting their nose in the corner, and all of a sudden that we can do no wrong them first 2 years, right? We can do no wrong. They can cry, and all we do is want to make them happy. All we want to do is heal their hurt, make them bring them back to a state of happiness. All we want to do is see them laugh. All we want to do is see them smile. All we want to do is create the environment that allows them to learn without fear. They have no fear as babies. We teach them that. And so we give our sons this a massive amount of love. And then they spend the next years of their life hearing everywhere that men ain't shit, that men are to be feared, that men are terrible, that men are always up to no good. And they hear that this is what they are to become after experiencing this enormous amount of love from their mother. From their mother. They are not to become mother. And so I was thinking about this because my grandson, I'm always talking about my granddaughter, Kalani. That's my boo. And how she changed me. Zane, my grandson, his birthday was yesterday. That boy softened me so much. And the reason why was watching him and my daughter together. This boy has such an incredibly big, big heart. And it is my fear that because I am not close enough and my baby is raising him by herself, that bigness of his heart, he's such a gentle, sweet, sweet baby. He just turned 4 yesterday. And even now, just such a big-hearted baby. Oh, he's so loving. He's so loving. And my fear is that society will take a hold of him, and women nearby him, their hurt will take a hold of him, and he too will become conflicted and angry in his little body, because it's like manifest destiny. If he hears all the time that men are no good, men ain't shit, men are not to be trusted, la 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 la, that this is what he too will feel burdened to become. And how do we rectify this? This is not about blaming women. This is not about blaming women. This is also not about absolving men of fucked up behavior. It is not. Multiple things can be true at the same time. What this message said to me is that men are just as desperate as women to figure out what the fuck is wrong with them. And nobody is offering them a solution worth anything any goddamn way. Nobody is offering them an explanation about even where their behavior comes from. We can call it things like toxic masculinity or misogyny or the this or the that or the this or the that. And none of that will be untrue. You feel me? What I am saying is, can we go deeper? Can we go deeper? Can we, while create, because this is what I'm always talking about with the temple. How do we create in real time what genuine independent sovereignty looks like? How do we create a safe space for human beings to be together, to be among each other, and know that they are genuinely safe? What does independent sovereignty look like? Because we done all been there, where we done been in these spaces among people that we quote trusted, in spaces where we thought we were safe, where we felt safe, right? We done been in spiritual spaces, you feel me? We done been in political spaces, you feel me? Revolutionary spaces, you feel me? We all on the same board, so we all want the same thing, fight the power. I want to see a free and independent African nation, you feel me? I want to see a free and independent indigenous, Western Hemispheric indigenous people laying back, you feel me? And so we believe when we hear these dialogues, right, come among us. And then to enter into these spaces open-hearted, because we like, yes, this is what it's about. This is what it's about. To be betrayed in these spaces. To be betrayed in these spaces. And to have another shell built up on our heart. Because we've been betrayed in spaces where we were supposed to be safe. But where did we establish in these spaces trust that is based on sovereignty, not some ambiguous bullshit that we just, pontificate? How do we establish genuine? Because I am not one to be talking about in national sovereignty. Y'all don't want to hear it. I do not give a fuck about national sovereignty. I don't. Ask me why I don't give a fuck about national sovereignty. Because every single solitary space that I have done political work, spiritual work, where the leading dialogue is about national sovereignty, African sovereignty, indigenous sovereignty, sovereignty for nations. In each one of those spaces, sovereignty was denied women in those spaces. Sovereignty was denied to individuals in those spaces. Sovereignty was denied to children in these spaces. Every time. Ask me an organization I've been associated with. I'll put them on blast. I don't care. Every single solitary space I have ever been in that purported to be the visionary that was going to change the world, the visionary organization, the visionary spiritual tradition, the visionary that was going to change the world, while they talking out in the world about sovereignty and independence and freedom and shit for the group, constantly, perpetually denying sovereignty to the individuals within the group that make up the group, exploiting human beings' labor in every organization, under the guise of political unity, in every single space. Yep. Treating children like appendages to the real work. That's happened. Yep. Exploiting the hearts of women in these organizations to create master multitaskers that just run, do, execute. While some dude just pontificate all the time, don't bust grapes, but got all the ideas. Yeah. So there was a reason I got on there. Oh, sovereignty. And so what, and I want y'all to hear me, because again, multiple things can be true at the same time. But something is changing, something is shifting in us. And these narratives that we have adopted, though they have been meaningful and they have served purposes at different times, they help to break open these layers. They help to, peel back the layers of the onions when we get new information that's been kept from us. When we understand new ideas that have been alien or foreign to us, they help peel back the layers of this onion. But at some junction, we're going to have to say, okay, that idea has served its purpose. Now it's time to go deeper. That idea has served its purpose. Now it's time to go deeper. Okay? That's what that was about last week. That while offering an honest explanation of how we arrived at this moment, how we got here, and the role that we, whether knowingly or unknowingly, as women, played at this arrival. We are not, and were not just strung along in history. That everything that we see now is just the execution of malignant males, and we was just drug along for the ride. We all, just like right this minute, just like I said, we all, whether passive or active, whether willing or unwilling, we all play a role in the maintenance and the preservation of this shit that we say we want done. We want to end this relationship that we have with the elite, with the 1%, with these mega gluttonous billionaires. We want to see an end to suffering and starvation, wars and violence. We want to see a world made well, where the inhabitants of the mother's body are not at war with itself, because that's what's happening, right? And so we as women have to say that if we are God, we all are, by the way, but we as portal carrying versions of the mother, we as portal carrying embodiments of the she, of the one, of the creator of all that is. And we know that we were the first. We have a responsibility to honestly analyze how we got here, because we have no stakes in its continuation. I don't have any stakes in the preservation of this shit the way that it is. So it behooves me to be open to what she says to me. Baby, you need to consider this. You need to consider this. It's hard to look at. It's not a condemnation. It is an analyzing of history and what gives rise to a baby that feels outcast by its mother. What happens to a child that experiences grief that lingers for so long that it becomes the slow burn that becomes rage? That rage, when it burns long enough, unchallenged, unmitigated, uncontrolled, untamed, becomes insanity. That's what she said. She said, why do you think I... She said, why do you think I gave you the science, baby? What does a little black girl from Alabama, from Dothan, Alabama, why would she go to fucking school for Chinese medicine to learn 5 elements theory when your ass was a musician? You wanted to be a rock star when you grew up. Why did you need this language? Why did you need this experience for right now? Because that's how the web works. That's how the strands of the web connect. You needed it for right now. You understand how. This is pathogenesis we're talking about. The world that we are experiencing is a sickness. It is a disharmony, not unlike what happens in our own bodies, not unlike what happens in our own flesh. And there is a methodology. There is a what we call a pathogenesis of how an origin, how a thing over time left unresolved transforms into a worse thing, transforms over long periods of time into a worse thing and then there are symptoms all along the way, because your body is always trying to preserve itself. Your body is always trying to care for itself. Your body is always trying to self-correct. Your body is always trying to self-heal. It's trying to warn you through symptoms. Symptoms are to warn you, baby, something's wrong. It starts late. Maybe something's not right. Address it. Something's not right. That's a symptom. That's what symptoms are. Always attempting to give us enough information, if we listen to ourselves, to self-correct and to take out of mother's body that which can help bring us back into harmony, right? This is the planet. The planet is experiencing a disharmony of grand proportion. This is why understanding pathogenesis of the elements is important. That when unresolved shock and fear, here, you see this as the water element, when unresolved shock and fear and unresolved, because this is the kidney and the urinary bladder, when unresolved shock and fear in the water element and unresolved grief in the metal element and unresolved worry and pensiveness, anxiety, and unresolved rage, resentment, frustration, anger, depression, stress, envy, and jealousy. That's all the liver. Unresolved sadness over millennia. This is the earth we're talking about now. We ain't just talking about our personal body. This is the earth we're talking about. Unresolved shock and fear, unresolved grief, unresolved anxiety, worry, pensiveness, anxiety, unresolved frustration, anger, rage, resentment, depression, stress, jealousy, and envy, unresolved sadness, linger and linger and linger. And the heart is the emperor. The heart is the emperor that controls the mind. Controls the mind. Then it makes sense that every single thing that we witness right now, everything that we see on earth right now, is something that needs to be addressed, is something that needs a movement for it. What, 4 or 5 simultaneous genocides happening in real time right now? But there are multiple wars, even if we're not calling them genocide. There are multiple wars happening right now, right? You name it. You name any ism. You feel me? The fact that human beings kill 24 million sharks in the ocean every year. These are all symptoms. These are all massive symptoms of now what has become a tumor. Damn near inoperable at this moment in history, right? But the other thing is the heart controls the mind. These things, these isms that we talk about, are the isms of psychopathy, of sociopathy, right? Of madness, global insanity. That's the pathogenesis, is when these things go on for now 6,000 years unaddressed. What are the herbs that are going to cure this? What are the therapies that are going to cure? Child, what are the herbs that are going to cure this? Needing now to address all the organs simultaneously because the sickness has gone on too long and threatens to kill the body of the whole. What did I say about the other little diagram I got for y'all? Right here. What did I say last week? I said we got to flip this motherfucker upside down. You know, the yin yang usually looks like this, but over a slow period of time. Because this thing, I told you, is a 5-dimensional diagram. We can only see it obviously 2-dimensionally, but this is 5-dimensional. This thing here, the yin and yang, is 5-dimensional. It exists in all dimensions, in all time, past, present, and future, and all potentialities rests within the yin and yang. But they exist within each other. They exist because of each other. But the mother, the substance, is where the yang emanates from. The mother gives birth to yang. But the yang stimulates the mother. That's the healing aspect of the yang. The mother gives birth to the yang, but the yang stimulates and moves the mother. And I'm saying we got to flip this motherfucker upside down. And everybody exists within the yin and yang. We see this as black and white because the black and white are the poles. Dark and light are the poles. But all y'all exist within this dichotomy. And y'all always saying this because it's y'all conditioning. Why everything gotta be black and white? Why y'all always talking about black stuff? Why it's always gotta be about black and white? Because this is it. This is it. This is it. Y'all all exist within this. This is the issue of the age. Here we are, the mother, child, the progenitor of you all. I'm talking about blackness. I'm talking about black women. The progenitor to you all. Here we are, the oldest on the planet. You understand? The progenitor to you all. What do I mean when I say that? The parthenogenic, spontaneous procreator called the mitochondrial Eve, who is the mother to us all and was jet black in sub-Saharan Africa. All of you. You understand? We are the progenitor to you all. And so that means even white males. We your mama too. You understand? And you are currently the ones, not exclusively, I will continue to say that, you are the ones currently wreaking havoc on the planet, but not exclusively. And not historically exclusively either. Right? These are the deconstructions that we have to do. Because one of the things that defines the Aquarian age, I think it was Brother Akim who said earlier, he said something to the effect of, what did he say? Where he at? Dang, y'all got a lot of comments. I was just going, and I ain't even stopped to read these. Brother Akim said, damn, that was a good one too. Shoot. Yeah, y'all been commenting on my bad, y'all. I'm going to slow down so I can bring some of y'all on the call. He said, I've been saying that all the time. The victimization of self is crazy, but we yearn to return to those moments. We say that to claim a sense of superiority, but it's futile. So I appreciate what he had to say there, right? But I want to take it a step further. Good morning, everybody that I did not acknowledge that came in. Samara, we are the product of the production we are producing from all we are, the byproduct of all we are. Most women condemn me for breastfeeding and not vaccinating. Okay, so so y'all got a lot of comments. I'm gonna slow my roll for a minute so I can address some of these comments because I really do want this to be interactive, okay? All right, so let me just say a couple of things and then I'm gonna go through these comments, and then I see one person on that I want to switch gears anyway, but it is gonna have to be a live that we spend just talking about this download and like making it interactive so y'all can come on about it. Y'all can still ask questions about it, but I'm just saying, as women, it's not about blame. And I'm gonna say, I want you to hear me. It's not about blame. It is about a slow process through our time together on earth. Slow, that emerges where all of a sudden, because we see our sameness in the environment, we see how all the higher animals, even some of the lower animals, have uteruses, how the relationships between the males and the females of these creatures show themselves, right? Or display themselves. We create mysteries. We create schools. We create sects. We create a way to continue the mystery, but in the process, we shut out the males. We do not teach them what it is to love like the goddess, to experience the other side of that which they experienced as infants and continue to long for, always trying to recreate in malignant ways. That's what emperors do. That's what kings do. That's what rulers do. That's what presidents, they try to recreate this sense of complete and total surrounding, safety, love, but it's malignant. So they get all these people around them to do everything for them, to clean their, tell me I'm wrong. Emperors, kings, and all, get somebody to clean their butt, you feel me? Get somebody to do their hair, take care, rub their body. This is an ill attempt at re-experiencing that little period of time that they were completely surrounded by their mother, completely protected by their mother. They didn't want for anything. And in an attempt to recreate that, I feel like the attempt to recreate that comes from the denial of experiencing the other side of that, to be the giver of instead of just the recipient of. Because being the recipient of that kind of boundless love ends up breeding spoiled brats who become toxic, right? Isn't that what this is the behavior? I want what you got, so I'm gonna come and take it. You can't have that, that's mine, right? Because they've only experienced one half of it in a world that they have created after years and years and decades and centuries of these unbridled, spoiled brats. That grief of isolation, of cast outness, becoming rage, resentment. That's how they behave the way they treat women. They treat women with rage. That's what we're experiencing. We say, okay, men hate women, because they just hate women because patriarchy. No. Where does the rage come from? Like to be born of a mother, to be born of a woman, to have sisters and aunties and still have this deep, deep seated rage. That's how your behavior comes out. Whether you abuse your wife or whatever, or your kids, whether you one that's always getting in fights with other men, right? Whatever it is, or whether it's the bigger shit like wars and shit, it's deep. It's not just, quote, love of money and power. It's deeper than that. The execution of the behavior is deep-seated rage, which makes you insane. We talk about it all the time, but not know what we're talking about when they talk about in history the madness of the king, right? It's the king who has ultimate power, nobody to be accountable to. And that kind of power drives them insane. And there's stories that exist in all cultures about the madness of the king. Shango is one of those kings. If we honest about the story, Shango was one of them kings, right? And so I believe the things that we and they try to recreate it too, even in their relationships with their partners, right? This whole idea of man being the head of the household and brings home the bacon. And in return, he gets to be the father to his wife. Meanwhile, the wife is mothering her husband, right? She is not being to him or needing from him or requiring from him, because she doesn't know either. This is a lesson for all of us. She doesn't know either, right? That what they need to experience is that which has been kept secret from them for a millennia, right? Is what it is to experience that kind of selfless love that still feeds you. That's the relationship between the mother and her child. I am fed by the health and happiness of my babies. I am at ease in my own body when I know my babies are well, when I can care for them, when I can make sure that their needs are met. I'm not depleted by that. I am filled by that, right? And we haven't shown them that. We haven't allowed them to see that. And I wanted to bring up, I'm not going to look for it today, but I'm going to mention it later. In The Great Cosmic Mother, I should try to find it. One of the things that Barbara Moore talks about that was so deep to me, and I still didn't have a frame of reference for it at the time until this download came. But when she talked about us keeping our blood a secret, what chapter is it? It's 12 Dancing Circles, blood. I'm gonna see if I can find it really quick. But when she talks about us keeping our blood a secret, the damage that it has done to male consciousness, in us keeping our blood a secret, that story I told y'all many videos back about how it had always been, since my mom and my dad got divorced, it had just been the three women in the house, me, my sister, and my mama. And when my stepdad moved into the house years later, one of the first conversations that she took me and my sister into the bathroom. I think Erica might have been 10 or 11. So I was about 12 or 13. I was about 12 or 13. And she took us into the bathroom to give us a long, this is how the rules of the house are going to change. We need to keep our blood a secret from the man in the house. When you bleed, you wrap it up tightly. You wrap it up in the plastic. You put it in a separate plastic bag and you walk it right out of the house. He does not need to know our dirty little secret. So we keep our menstrual blood a secret from males, right? And one of the things that she talked about, because in matriarchal societies, the blood was the evidence of life continued, right? The blood was this sacred ceremony that let everyone around us know that, yes, we can continue to be. This is a subconscious thing, a subconscious collective understanding. As long as the women bleed, we will continue to live. As long as the women bleed, we will continue. We have the ability to survive, right? And she says in here, I'm going to make a bigger mark of this cap. Somebody, the moon tree, the moon blood. In essence, what she says, if I can't find it and I really want to, is that what we have done in denying males the knowing of our blood, the memory of our blood. Here it is. Holy shit, I turned right to it. She said, listen, y'all got a minute? I'm going to read something to you. This is for those who want to find it for yourself and mark it. She says, this is on page 193 of The Great Cosmic Mother, Rediscovering the Religion of the Earth. This is the essence, I think, of what came down. On 193, about the third paragraph down, we can go back a little further, but yeah, we can. You can actually start on 192, the second paragraph from the top. But she says, Okay, so this chapter, because you should reread this whole chapter or go back to my reading of the whole chapter. Menstrual rights, rights and taboos. That's the name of the chapter. That's on page 191. But in this little section that I wanted to read in particular, she said, men in patriarchal societies learn or reveal a great jealousy and fear of natural women. We created that. We created that. We contributed to that. Of the sexual, mental, and spiritual abilities of fully evolved women living in harmony with the consciousness of our own bodies. The menstrual taboo is the consequence of this fear and resentment. This is what she said. As they are projected back onto women's lives. Under patriarchy, all life is dualized. Women are also dichotomized, cut in two. There is the good little ovulating wife who is supposed to be passive and not very sexual. It's hard for even a woman to feel sexy cleaning the toilet bowl. And then there is the witch, the sex fiend, the whore, the scarlet, red again, of active, dynamic menstrual sexuality. As both Female Cycles and The Wise Wound show, these are books, The Female Cycles and The Wise Wound, there are two poles to women's sexuality. The pole of ovulation, which tends to express itself in the terms of wanting to surrender. Listen, wanting to surrender. Its white, clear discharge is called the river of life, and it is acceptable in patriarchy because it is receptive and fertile. And the pole of menstruation, before, during, and after, which expresses itself in wanting to take erotic initiative, to capture, to demand. The red flow is also called the river of death. And its multi-orgasmic and aggressive sexuality is taboo in patriarchy. Our menstrual sexuality, which is non-fertile, is called masculine and castrating by Freudian types who share in the cultural fear of a mature woman. In early patriarchy and in some contemporary indigenous cultures that have been colonized by misogynistic religions, the menstrual taboo is openly punitive. It's openly punitive. It codifies sexual hostility in societies where women are treated as currency in men's affairs. Under the menstrual taboos, women were to be punished for our powers, sexual, reproductive, and psychic powers. We were banished to the menstrual hut, called unclean and dangerous to the man and his laws and his gods. In some tribal communities, we were imprisoned in dark cages or rooms for months, for as long as 3 years with the first menstruation. In American Indian cultures, on the other hand, the menstruating woman is seen for what she is, a powerful life source. As Daughters of Copper Woman shows us, Native American women have worked to keep alive for generations their affirmative and celebratory customs surrounding female puberty, including years of physical training to make women strong in both body and mind. They did this despite constant opposition from Christian missionaries and preachers who always view women's blood customs as savage and as satanic. Underneath the colonizing misogyny of Christianity and Islam, Black African women, too, have managed to keep alive ancient puberty and menstrual customs, which are energizing for women. Worldwide, much of women's sacred blood rights and magical instruments have simply been stolen by patriarchy, or if not co-opted, completely repressed. Male initiation rites can express an envy and awe of women as men cut or wound their own penises in imitation of bleeding vaginas. These rites reenact birth and menstruation, but they also symbolize a violent separation from women, earth, and the maternal, more a guilty theft than a true participation in. Listen. As Margaret Mead and others have shown, this was the crux of what I wanted to read to you, and then I'm going to shut up and start reading some of y'all comments. As Margaret Mead and others have shown, listen. Page 193, child of the great cosmic mother. Listen on this day. Third paragraph from the bottom. From the top. Oh, my arm, God. As Margaret Mead and others have shown, the more warlike and authoritarian a society is, the stronger its menstrual taboos. Do y'all hear what I'm telling y'all right now? The more warlike and authoritarian a society is, the stronger its menstrual taboos. In such societies, a paranoid emphasis is placed on women's co-opting, debilitating influence. Sound familiar? Practitioners of E5? This sound familiar to y'all? Listen. Co-opting, they have a paranoid emphasis placed on women's co-opting and debilitating influence and men's need to overpower, dominate, and devalue her. Male training in aggression is linked with these taboos for both men and boys against any knowledge of or contact with women. Listen, women's natural functions. Listen, y'all, this is what she was saying, and I didn't get it. I got it, but I got it in a different context. This is what the mother meant. Male training in aggression is linked with taboos for both boys and men against any knowledge of or contact with women's natural functions. We did that. We keep, because of the taboos. Multiple things can be true at the same time, but because of the taboos that we have accepted as dogma, as tradition, as culture, keeping our dirty little secret from the men and boys in our homes. Listen, any knowledge of or contact with women's natural functions. This is where their training in aggression begins. It would seem that when there is no acknowledgement of women's bleeding, then there is instead a male acting out of ritual and violent bloodshed in war. Listen. Woo. I'm going to read that whole section again. Male training in aggression is linked with taboos for both men and boys against any knowledge of or contact with women's natural functions. It would seem that when there is no acknowledgement of women's bleeding, then there is instead a male acting out of ritual and violent bloodshed in war. Warlike, aggressive male societies are in rivalry with women over which sex sheds the most sacred blood. Woo. War is men's response to women's ability to give birth and menstruate. All three are blood-shedding rituals. Women's blood rites give life, however, while men's bloody rituals give only death. To compensate for this, such authoritarian societies culturally repress and degrade women's blood functions while elevating murderous war to a holy act. The women's menstrual mysteries of inspiration become, in war god worshiping patriarchy, the mysteries of resisted knowledge, repression, and madness. Yo. Y'all heard? Y'all with me? Listen. She said warlike, aggressive male societies are in rivalry with women over which sex sheds the most sacred blood. War is men's response to women's ability to give birth and menstruate. All three are blood-shedding rituals. Women's blood rites only give life, however, while men's bloody rituals give only death. Now, why did I read this? Because the whole time I'm saying in my head, what role did we play? She says, right, that they were envious, jealous. Wait a minute. She said, Yes, she says here, this great jealousy and fear of natural women, right? This, what else? This fear and resentment that they experience, right? And yes, and in response, they do what? They dualize and dichotomize women to have power over. Is this the origin of all these stories where the son raises up against the mother and murders his mother? Was out of jealousy and fear, out of resentment and fear of that which had been kept secret from him, that he was not embraced into the secrets, allowed into the secrets. And so his response was because she says in the earlier chapters, what does she say in the earlier chapters? In the earlier chapters, she talks about these where these male blood rights emerged from, whether it was the blood rights of the hunters going out to hunt together, the cave drawings of the men dressed in the skins, hoping to be injured in the protection of the clan or in their hunt for the animal, praying to receive an injury so that they could be like their mother, and that they would call the injury that they received a vulva, like their mother. Having to be outside the group, what? The egalitarian collective of women to create, left on their own, to their own devices, to create their own blood ceremony, because they have been left out of, not given a place within the egalitarian collective of women. Seen as, even though, quote, mommy and I are one, that you are of my body. You are me. Whether you male, whether you other, you are me. Not an insignificant part of me. You are me. And that's what science did. I'm going to tell you, I'm a scientist. So I accept, like scientifically, why the Y chromosome is important, what it's showing up evolutionarily did in terms of diversifying the gene pool, right? To reduce the likelihood of genetic diseases, right? But what we have done using science as the language have chronically demoted the significance of the male's presence on Earth to help explain to us why, again, they are less than, they're lower than, they're not like us women, right? But they are us. They are of us. What do the great cosmic mothers say? Biologists say about who males are? They're half female. Why are they half female? Because they are of their mother's body. Their mitochondrial DNA comes from their mother, comes from the one still. And so what we have done has contributed, even seeded this jealousy, this envy, this resentment in our children, in our male children. And then their response, which is violent, because that's what she says, in the absence of being able to be a participant in, a witness to the natural functions of the woman's body that's in their spaces, their mother, their sister, their auntie, whomever, their lover, their partner. We keep our dirty little secret away from them. And in the absence of being brought into understanding the power and depth of these life-giving rituals that emanate and occur freely in the female body, their natural response is aggression. When we keep the secrets from them of where the love that we shown them in the first 2 years of their lives, and we keep the secrets from them, we do not embolden them. We do not give them the information. We do not give them the know-how to experience love in our bodies the way that we do. So the only way that they can express love is like a father. What is a father? Where does a father come from? A father is a son. A father begins as a son. The original father began as a son, right? And so what that means is I'm not talking about, when I talk about being able to allow males to experience love like a mother experiences love, to be able to demonstrate and feel in their body the love that they experienced on one side as the recipient, and then were cut off from there on, right? All they can do is become patriarchal fathers, because every father that we hail as a strong provider is a patriarchal father. He is fashioned after his God. He is fashioned after his God. Damn, this is taking too long. He's fashioned after his God. And so